Okay, so yeah, let us understand what uh, a cloud data engineer mean. Okay, and first of all, let us see what is the trend that is currently going on. Let us observe that, right? So if you observe, I mean, like 5 6 years back, maybe a few of you might have not started your careers, but a few of you have already started and you're in your mid of your careers, right? So what the transition that I witnessed is that there is a kind of a paradigm shift that is currently going on, right? Like the focus was earlier on acquiring assets, acquiring infrastructure. Okay, I mean, a lot of infrastructure was uh, acquired by companies, right? From the infrastructure point of view, let me just take a new sheet. Okay, earlier, if you have to say enterprises, right? So enterprises meaning any companies or the clients that give us business, right? Their focus they were thinking on, okay, they have to invest and they have to invest on the infra, they have to invest on the operations, right? Even now this goes on, but I'll tell you how is this now transitioning in. Okay, that means they are possessing all these physical assets. Okay, I should say physical diminishing assets. In fact, all diminishing assets. Okay, like enterprises kind of invested a lot in their infra operations. Okay, what not to say, I mean, there are many things like workforce, right? Workforce. Okay, because they engaging a lot of vendors. Okay, like suppose you have been might be working for Wipro, might be working for some Infosys or any other companies or any product based companies. Okay, so the big enterprises, right? So they try to engage in people and get their business. That means their business as usual. That means they call it as a BAU. That term is coined like that, to have their business running. Okay, now what has happened here was, okay, uh, if you observe, I mean, IT field has been very dynamically changing, and I will just slow. So, just give you a brief intro of how dynamic, even on the cloud side, also. Okay, but we have seen this trend of kind of a IT growing and growing, and then the enterprises are getting into a kind of a uh, situation where they are unable to kind of get the exact things or exact cost that they are spending. I mean, they happen to be spending more and more on the infra, their operations, their workforce, vendors for managing, maintaining. Okay, now they wanted to basically get into a control. Okay, so what exactly is with my server? Okay, how many servers do I need? Do I really require it? And do I really require it at this point of time? Okay, earlier, if you have to plan for a project, right? So the first thing was like the assessment goes on, and then the infra related to that goes on, and there used to be one person going ahead and deploying that particular asset that required hardware, software, networking, everything used to be a process where one person used to go and do that get that done, and a lot of expenditure was spent on workforce and all. Okay, now with this advent of the cloud into the, if you kind of want a computer but your mobile phone, you just have your tablet itself, you are still able to get a compute instance for lease or rent for subscription. Just like how we subscribe to different OTT platform, we can subscribe. Okay, the subscribe concept had been introduced in Azure or introduced by Microsoft long ago. Okay, but this subscriptions and all that we came to know after OTT and all that. Even earlier we knew that, but it is not that coin. But with the advent of this cloud and Azure, Amazon, Google Cloud Platform coming into the picture, right? We or the client or the enterprises, and we have that flexibility, okay, as a person, right? If you want to learn something and you don't have money, but you can still go and spin up a server cluster or a computer for yourself. Okay, you need not have any money with you, but you can still own that compute. Okay, just by having a browser. Okay, so that's the level of advancement we went into, and it is still going on and it doesn't stop. Okay, so what's the catch here? Okay, why we are going into cloud, but what's the catch? Okay, now what happens is, right, when you are on cloud, okay, it brings you more predictability, or you are trying, you'll be able to assess the costs in much better manner. Okay, and uh, you can get it straight away. Okay, suppose if I have to show you one of the portal that I personally maintain. Okay, so and I just go to my, this is my cloud portal. Okay, just to, sorry to jump in directly into the portal, but I just wanted to show that insight, how it actually shows the subscription details and all that. What a wonderful insight that it provides. Okay, uh, uh, automatically selected. Okay, that's fine. Cost analysis. Okay, so this is my portal. Yeah, it will show up some of the visuals in some time. Okay, it gives a forecast and all that. What has been the expenditure that I have been personally spending out? Okay, in rupees. You can see in rupees. Uh, in what I am investing on, in which location, and all that. You can see this entire. So what business needs is this insight. Okay, where exactly my money is going in. Okay, so it offers better predictability of the cost. So ultimately, okay, what business wants is like optimized costs, right? So ultimately everything will turn into a dollar saving, right? So that's the point there. Okay, from the cloud, okay, you get better uh, uh, predictability, okay, with respect to costs. And the other one is the dynamic uh, allocation. Okay, I will say this as a dynamic infra procurement. I will say procurement. Okay, so dynamic infra procurement. So just like I mentioned, if you wanted to store something, okay, I can immediately go ahead and create a service in Azure where I can have my entire storage saved there. Okay, so that's the level of uh, I mean, we can't really wait for years or kind of a months, okay, getting something possessed. Okay, now everybody wants everything in a click. Okay, that is how uh, the Azure or in the cloud world it works. The things are working in the cloud in that way with the help of just a click. Okay, but earlier this was not the scenario. If you have to procure something, you have to wait for that product to be shipped, for that hardware to be shipped. Okay, there's a lot of uh, just a second, I have to take one call. Sorry. Okay, yeah, sorry for that. I have to take that call. Okay, we are into this dynamic infra procurement, and then like how easy it was and how difficult or not difficult. It was like a time based, right? So we cannot wait. We had to wait for at least a month to get that hardware shipped to the actual site and all that. Okay, so that's the level of uh, ease or flexibility that cloud is offering, and everybody or we as such have to transition at one point of time into the cloud. And so this is all about cloud that we are talking about. Now let us go into the next step of data engineering. Okay, so like I mentioned right earlier, that now there is no kind of a technology being mentioned. It says Azure Cloud Engineer certification. Okay, we are getting into a kind of a role based kind of a scenarios. I mean, role based jobs, role based roles in the companies, right? So so you can see that shift slowly. You're seeing that shift, and this shift is not going to stop. It is going to evolve even more, and the advancement will keep continuing. Okay, just to give you an insight, okay, on how Azure actually deploys. Okay, the Azure being one of the cloud service on which that we are going to have classes on, like we are going to discuss, right, specific to the data engineering on something and an Azure service called Azure Data Factory. Okay, and uh, in our sessions, okay, in our sessions that we have, right, so basically we'll be having the focus on the Azure Data Factory side. And this data factory that I'm talking about, this is like something like a orchestrator, or if I should say, it's a suppose if I take a scenario, right, like you might already been working on your own companies already, and you might be handling scenarios like from the client's request saying that, okay, I have some data in my somewhere in my folder or somewhere in my shared folder, and you have to bring in the data and do some mashup of the data and joining some tables and all that. And so so such kind of a scenario, uh, suppose take the case like, okay, now the entire world is moving into the cloud, right? That's what we are saying. Now think like that storage part is somewhere in some kind of a blob. Okay, we call that as an Azure blob container. Okay, and then the target of that particular process, or the client is asking you to move the data into some kind of a table. Okay, which table? Okay, let us say, assume like it is a SQL server, MS SQL server, but it is on cloud. Okay, there'll be some other scenario where you are having one on-premise setup. I hope you are understanding what is this on-premise and all that, right? So on-premise is something on your premises. That means on your location physically you can see that server somewhere. Okay, but cloud is somewhere that is in the control of Microsoft itself, and it is not in the control of any other I mean ourselves. Okay, we do not own the we just own that instance, okay, for that time, but not really the physical part of it. We are just taking it for as a subscription, as a lease. Okay, but on premise is something that you have owned it and you have kept it in your location. That means it is on in your company premises, in your enterprise premises. Okay, so that is where on premise comes into the picture. Okay, on premise. Okay, now coming back to the scenario that we have. Okay, that okay, there is some data somewhere in the cloud. Okay, like some blob container. Think like that it's like a file storage entity where you can just store or dump your files or your raw files. Okay, and this is the target SQL server which is on cloud. And this data factory, okay, what does this data factory does is it does connect to this and also connect to this and try to perform whatever is required based on the business requirement and try to integrate these two resources. So what is it actually doing? It's like it is providing that integration between different Azure services, okay, different Azure services. So just to immediately jump into few of the things that we are going to see here. Okay, somewhere I'll try to give you one small example. Okay, okay. So this is the Azure Data Factory screen. Okay. So when we actually start with the classes, we will go about how to acquire this, how to get this, get to the level of creating this and all that. But I'm just trying to show you what we are going to work on. I mean, basically the canvas or the portal where we log in and do the work, right? So you can see that there is some kind of a I'm showing you some factory resources and all that, right? So what is happening here? Okay, so there is some process. If you just read out this here, right? What am I trying to do is I'm trying to get some list of tables. I'm trying to loop in into some kind of an entity or an activity. Okay, I'll just see what is that activity. It's a activity of copying data. And what is this copying data having? Okay, it is having a source, it is having a sink, that means the source, the target. Okay, so it is, are you trying to perform these activities or this process of getting in the data and all that using the Azure service called Azure? So this is the actual uh, now the companies or the enterprises are looking out for, okay, things on the Azure Data Factory. And apart from this, okay, apart from this, there are also different other services that are offered by Microsoft, and we will also be kind of looking into those, something like Databricks, right? So people do ask what is this Databricks cluster, okay, and all that, right? So we go and navigate, we kind of execute, okay, whatever is present in the notebooks that are created. Okay, people who do not know what is a notebook and all that, right, think like it is some piece of code, okay, which is present in that entity. So basically we'll be doing some execution of code using notebooks. Okay, these are all different services that are available. Okay, just to give you a glimpse of the different services available in Azure, right? There are a huge number of sources and resources that we go and allocate. Okay, suppose if I just go and say create resource, okay, there's a big tab that comes in. Okay, what is that you wanted to do? Okay, what is that you wanted it to? You can either set up your infra directly. Okay, just like I said, infra on cloud. Okay, you can set up a platform on cloud, and you can also have software also on cloud. So these are like the important parts. We call them as IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS, right? So I think you might have already heard of these terms, but you may be not directly working on the cloud side and all that. Okay, and you might have already worked on this in one of the fields, and you might be planning for a transition into the data engineering space. Okay, so there are number of scenarios here, because we do not have much time to have the to discuss the specific cases, but I know like you might be in one of these fields and you wanted to transition into the data engineering world. Okay, but I'm just trying to explain you what are the different Azure services that it has, right? So basically you can set up a Ubuntu server. You can just go ahead, create a cluster. You have your version ready. Suppose it's 10 Pro. Okay, you're planning to do some testing around your whether your application is working in this or not. Okay, you just go ahead and create a cluster, Windows 10 cluster. So just like that, there are different categories, right? So databases, see how many different kinds of databases are there. Okay, so why am I discussing all this? I'm just trying to give you that there is a big cloud ecosystem. Okay, there is a big cloud ecosystem here, right? Yeah, the ADF that I'm talking about, okay, or I should say, if I have to call another service out, okay, we are also having something called Azure Synapse, okay, which is actually also trying to pick in, okay, Azure Synapse, so which works on a similar lines, the ETL pipelines develop or connecting to the different sources and all that. That part would be common between both of them, okay. But I'm trying to explain you like what is this Azure Data Factory does. Okay, it actually connects to the n number of services. It tries to integrate with each. Okay, it tries to integrate with each and get you and get the insight that is required for the business. And ultimately, right, what happens is we might be having some reporting being done, okay, in some kind of a Tableau, or whether it could be Power BI. Okay, basically there'll be one semantic layer where the business users can start their developing their reports on, right. They might be using some interface or some tools like Power BI, okay, some tools like Tableau, some tools like ClickView. You might have heard all these terms, okay, when you're talking, when you might be hearing about reporting services or crystal reports. So there are like n number of things that are there, but the ultimate aim for anything is, okay, connecting to different sources, integrate with different sources, bring in, transform it according to the business need, okay, according to the business need, and then push it wherever, and push it in the sense, publish your data, okay, publish your data into uh, one kind of a model, okay, data model, such that it gets some business value out of it, right. So basically if I have to explain one end-to-end scenario, right, so we have been talking now about what a data engineer does, or what are we actually going to learn here, right. So I'm coming to that part, like an in detail overview what a data engineer should possess. Okay, it doesn't matter, I mean, if you're taking up this course or anything, but these are some kind of a basic framework on which future, and what are we actually going to learn. Okay, and I was also trying to show you some insights, right. So let me just, yeah, I was trying to explain you about these insights that it has, that which is has a split on what's my spending for this current month. Okay, so to get a better understanding of how I am managing my subscription. Similarly, in your organization that you are in, okay, there'll be some Azure admin, right, who will be managing all these costs and all. And then we went ahead and discussed about this huge ecosystem, at least from the Azure, right? So when we are talking about cloud, okay, the cloud is a common term. Okay, it can be AWS cloud or a GCP cloud. Okay, but here our focus would be on Microsoft cloud, that is called as Microsoft Azure. And you can see the different sets of tools that are available here. Okay, uh, don't just panic that there are too many things. Do we need to learn all this and all that? Okay, this is just for your information that these many number of resources are available. Okay, these many number of services are available in Azure. Okay, and our focus would be something on analytics alone, right? So something like there is a Synapse here. Okay, there'll be a data factory here. Okay, let me show you the data factory. Data factory would be there. So it gives you this nice symbol of a factory symbol here. Okay, so I'm gonna add to my favorites, and then yeah, it's a huge marketplace that you have where you can go ahead and spin up the resources, go ahead and try to hit the marketplace and get whatever service that you want. So you are seeing Azure Databricks. So we are going to discuss about Azure Databricks also. Okay, Azure Data Explorer. So there are so many number of services, but yeah, the basic would be in kind of a understanding this end-to-end process. Okay, I will just take 5 minutes time to make you also understand how the end-to-end process looks like. Okay, it's like a very brief introduction that I'm trying to give you. Okay, and you also saw. Let me go to my home screen. Okay, so this is on that data factory side, right? And as I told you, there is also synonymous service called Synapse. So where we kind of a create a similar pipelines. Okay, we call this as pipeline. You can see this pipe symbols and all that. Okay, but if you're seeing this home screen, you can see one particular like some kind of a pillars here, right? Can you see? Ingest, orchestrate, and then transform. Okay, so just to give you that process of that end-to-end process of the data engineering process, right? What actually happens in the real world is that any companies that you're working out for, right? So okay, they, they might be in a different scenario. Okay, so they might have already had invested in huge amount of infra already. Okay, and they wanted to slowly move into the cloud area. Okay, that means you need to perform some migration or something like that, or uh, so in this entire journey, like from going from one area to the another area, right? So far you have been working on premise. Now you are moving into the cloud world. Okay. When I say on premise, so there are on premise Microsoft BI related services that were there. Service in the sense softwares that are there where we used to develop the SQL Server integration packages and all that. So I'm not talking about those, but rather we'll be focusing our thing only on the Azure analytics side, Azure data engineering side. Okay, so coming to this process that I'm talking about, right? So data engineering process, and you might have already seen looking like some kind of a pillars here or the main items here, right? So what actually happens in real world is in your companies, in your the clients that you are working on, okay, they might be having n number of different sources. Okay, different sources, but the first primary part for that source or that raw data to be transformed into a nice insight is we need to first extract them. Okay, and we call that process as ingestion process. Okay, you might be hearing some questions around this, right? In which process you are involved during the data engineering phase. Okay, we have to say in which process you are in. whether you were you involved in the source extraction process, or are you in the transformation process. So it depends on a different project that you are dealing with. But in our classes, what we'll do is we'll try to understand this entire end-to-end process, right? Starting with the ingestion process that I'm talking about. So what is this ingestion process? Okay, think like you are working for some kind of a uh, uh, in a control systems. Okay, you might have heard this control system. When I say control systems, it could be some wind turbines, or it could be some kind of a records that are being generated in somewhere in some factory. Okay, some manufacturing factory. Okay, so it might be generating huge amounts of data, and there should be a way connecting to that particular source and extract it and bring it into your Azure world. When I say Azure world, I'll say like I'm planning for an extraction. Extraction of what? Extraction of data. By connecting to what? By connecting to the actual source. Here the source is a control system. That means it might be a SQL server, it might be some kind of a open text formatted files, it could be Oracle server, it could be anything. Okay, first we need to perform the source extraction. That means source extraction, that integration is being done again in using the data factory. And what am I planning to do? My initial planning is get the data, get my raw data into my premises. That means into my container, into my blob, into my data lake. So when I'm just giving a pause and saying each service, right? So those are all related services. When I say blob, when I say container, when I say data lake, okay. Now, uh, whatever extraction process or this ingestion process that I'm talking about, right? What it does is it goes connect to a foreign source and try to bring in the data into our systems. And wherever we store our data, right, we are calling that service, or we have an Azure service where we can create a data lake. Okay, so I'm saying like I will go to the source, connect to it. So Azure Data Factory will tell, okay, I will go to the source, connect to it on a daily basis, and bring the dump of the data and put it in our data lake. So that is what is ingestion process. So this is the starting process that we are going to learn. And then we will have the transformation process, where this is the main area where you have raw data now with you in the data lake. Okay, but now that data lake data which is there, it is of no use until unless it is nicely mashed up and showed up in a kind of a nice good report. Okay, until if that is done, there's nothing that even business would get some value out of it, right? That business insights should be neatly, or it should be in a presentable way. That is what this transformation process will do. Okay, and this transformations is again okay, synchronized, or I should say orchestrated. You have to use this term called orchestration. It performs an orchestration. What does the Azure Data Factory does? It does the orchestration. it, so using what? Okay, this Azure Data Factory, as I showed you, it might connect to n number of services. Okay, so that means a Databricks activity is there, a copy data activity there. Okay, data, uh, think like there is some kind of a high query that we are firing. Okay, what are all these? These are different services that are in Azure, or the different services or different sources that we have. Okay, where we can actually bring in the data and then transform and put it in data lake, and then we wanted to actually transform them, and we mm, transform this using Databricks or mapping data flows. Okay, so that means we are trying to mash up that data. So basically we will wrangle that data, and when I say wrangle, we might have to connect to different tables, we have to connect to the different stored procedures, or I should say views that are at different sources, and finally put everything into some storage. Okay, some storage where the storage can be anything. It can again be a data lake, it could be a SQL server. Okay, it could be analysis services or a Synapse Analytics, Cosmos, Azure Blob. So there are number of target destinations. So depending upon the business requirement or business need, we will be kind of a transforming that into a valuable insight and pushing that data or publishing that data. Okay, now after this publication is done, okay, we will learn in the classes how to transform that data. Okay, after this is done, okay, ultimately what happens is it will go to the presentation layer. Okay, so basically we'll have some dashboards that are built on top of this data lake in SQL Server, or a Azure Synapse, or a Visualpath Demo, or a analysis services. Okay, so basically even the business, right, now the clients are becoming they themselves are becoming citizen developers. That means you need not actually develop those reports. They are now in a situation to develop them on their own, but only thing is they do not know how the complex it can be with respect to extracting from raw data to the target server. And we will learn about all this part in our classes, like how to actually create services in Azure Data Factory, how to integrate, make use of different activities. Okay, so this is on a overall process perspective when we are talking, right, what business wants, what we are going to do with the data. Okay, but as a developer, like as a lead from your end, right, or I should say as a manager or as an architect in somewhere, right, you might also be working on the the development part. So that means there should be some kind of a DevOps, that means the development and the operations coming into the picture, right? So when I say you as a developer, you might be saving everything into some code, right? Like DevOps, like GitHub, and you might be actually working in the real world. How is this? You might have already had an insight if you're already managing the code in GitHub or a Bitbucket. Okay, there are a number of uh, uh, code repositories where you can store. Okay, but what we are going to learn is how to perform the deployment of an ADF, and how to actually create continuous integration, CI/CD pipelines. Okay, CI/CD pipelines meaning continuous the Azure DevOps integration. Okay, the CI/CD pipelines. So we'll have one class on how to actually automate this deployment process. Okay, uh, so what we are going to actually learn is the complete end-to-end. Okay, if you being developer in cloud, okay, what is that you need to learn? Okay, right from starting from this fundamentals, how to manage things in the Azure portal. Okay, okay, and then how to create the resources, and in your practical scenario, in your organization, you might be allocated some Azure IDs and all that. Okay, creating the resources on your own, but this might be the scenario for a Azure admin. But from the developer perspective, what you need to think on the lines of end-to-end process. Okay, so there'll be some kind of a best practices too that we can implement. So CI/CD pipelines being one of the best practice to have created. And then we will learn about this ARM
Yeah,
templates. Sorry. Okay. uh, Yeah, I was actually trying to explain the end-to-end process. Okay, from the developer's perspective, what else that you need to learn on, and we will try to integrate with SQL Server and Azure Blobs. Okay, for our POCs, for each of the session that we're going to have. There'll be some part of the theory covered, and also one kind of a demo that I'll be able to showcasing. And then you might have to go ahead and practice it to yourself, right? So that is when you will get to learn things. And if you have any questions or queries, yeah, we will be kind of working that out in the sessions that we are going to have. Okay. Um So this is like a very brief part that what we are going to learn, or I was trying to explain about the end-to-end data engineering process. Okay, it might not be that simple that I just put it in one particular Excel sheet and explaining you, but yeah, when I say source extraction, it is just not a simple word there. It involves like a creation of there are several steps to actually when we are planning to connect to some source or anything. Okay, so and I will also be able to kind of show you, I mean, I can just give you some very basic on comparison on already I did give what is it with respect to data factory and all, right? So basically the cloud-based platform as a service, why are we doing this? It is basically to orchestrate and automate our pipelines, right? So these are all the other things, I mean, when we start our classes, but as such, just to let you know that, right? So end-to-end data engineering process would be like this. And what we're going to learn is like from the developer's perspective, what is that you need to learn with respect to code management. Think like a scenario like you have to merge, or how do we actually move the code across environments, right? So those are all the thing that we are going to learn. We are going to create the CI/CD pipelines. We are going to create the branching. Okay, we'll be taking the branches, we'll try to merge those branches. Okay, we'll all see that practically, so that you are also in a situation to do the same. So this is what a developer does, and that is what we are going to learn here. Okay, so I will just open this forum for some questions that you have, and you can ask your respective questions that you have with respect to any of the content that we discussed so far, or anything on the course side. Okay, anyone else has having any questions around this area? Yeah, yes, I see.
Yeah, I just want to know what happens after the transformation phase.
Hmm.
What happens? I couldn't see. Yeah,
Okay. So we have discussed about the ingestion, and then we discussed
yeah.
about the transformation. And then what are we actually doing in the transformation? If you see, we are trying to store that useful information. That means the processed information either into a analysis services or a SQL server. Okay, and now the next would be like the presentation part, right? So that means we the business usually connects to this SQL server or the analysis server, and they try to create their reporting and dashboards on top of this. So that's the final layer in data engineering, like on the presentation side. We will
Uh,
not be discussing anything with respect to Power BI, but yeah, we'll be able to just showcase something on the data side. But we are not discussing the Power BI here. It's Power BI is a separate class altogether. But yeah, this is the final layer that you have.
so as a Azure Data Engineer, we're gonna work on these three processes
We need to
extraction,
understand.
transformation,
Yes,
and
basically you need to
presentation.
understand these processes. Okay, but
Okay.
from the data engineering point of view, we will either be in kind of an ingestion process or a transformation process, and sometimes there is no separation, and they kind of usually merge these two and also create. So what we will try to do is we'll try to take up a scenarios. We'll try to understand how we can achieve this ingestion process using the different activities that we have in data factory. And
Mhm.
similarly we will be also be working on like Databricks cluster or Azure mapping data flows. So basically mapping data flows are also kind of a area where you can actually transform, perform lookups and all that, and you can uh, finally put that into a usable format, right? So we can finally push that data into a SQL server and its relevant service that we have. Okay, we'll be working on these two layers, but this layer is something which is there at the last, which is like a presentation layer. It's about the reporting dashboards that will be provided, and this actually need not be just Power BI. It can be any other tool like Tableau, like a ClickView, because a few of the companies, they might have already purchased licenses for them. I mean, already they might have already had, and they will try to have their presentation on top of it can be anything, right? Basically any tool, uh, and any new tool also. Okay, but it is just that it needs to have that connector to this one of the connections in the cloud. That's it.
Okay. I think one of us asked a question on AWS data engineering and Azure data engineering. Even I too have that. Like, can you please elaborate or explain like what would be the difference between those two?
um, the differences lies on the services that are there, services that are offered. Okay, like suppose when I'm talking about blob, okay, I call in Azure as a blob. Okay, but in AWS they call this as S3 bucket, or they'll say okay, S2 bucket. So basically ultimately the business side achievement, the functionality achievement would be the same, but it is more of, it is called with a different name. Okay, and even the technology also might differ. Okay, but I cannot actually nail down on the exact differences, because on the technology side there could be some advantages, there could be some disadvantages, but my focus, or what I've been working on so far, was more focused on the Azure side. But I would say, like there can be scenarios where you might have to develop some kind of a cross, like you might have to go connect to an S3 bucket. But if we have that relevant connectors available, right, then definitely that is something can go cross technology, or I should say but just to highlight on the differences, right? So every equivalent Azure service would have its own synonym, I should say, but called with a different name in AWS. So from the engineering point of view, it can be similar, but I know like a few of the things like Azure is excelling, and few of the things Amazon goes into is a dominant player there. I mean, coming to the infra and all that, I think Amazon is more dominant. And but it coming to this services within, like Azure is much more kind of an aggressive in playing the things. So that is how I can put it up. But it is more of kind of a similar thing that you will be working on, but it might be called with a different name, and the backend technology would be slightly different, but the functionality part would be the same. Just like I mentioned, a blob service is called an S3 bucket, and the Azure Stream Analytics is something I don't exactly remember that name in Amazon. They call it Amazon Kinesis. Okay, so there are equivalent services there. Okay, so that is how I will put it when you ask me the differences between both of them. Okay, I saw someone. So did I answer your question? Basically, I might not be nailing down on the exact differences for you, but I just gave my perspective there.
Yeah, thank you. I just got some like that's fine. Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah, Ravi, like I have one more doubt.
Yeah.
So as a prerequisites, like I got to know from someone, I'm not sure whether it is correct or not. So they said like directly we can't jump into this data engineer part. So the basic has to be completed at Azure 900. Is it true?
AZ 900, is it? Are you talking about
Yeah.
AZ 900 certification? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So AZ900 is to basically to give you an introduction to what are the Azure services, how to manage the things in the Azure portal. Okay, Azure portal, like creating of the services and few of the admin related, what is a subscription and all that. Okay, but in our class what we'll do is I will teach you the basic of how this interface looks like, how the how to create resources within this Azure portal. Okay, uh, so from the creation and that integration part in the data factory, everything would be covered. So you can say that some basic fundamentals of Azure I will be covering in the session itself, because I know like some of you are completely new to this cloud world, and you would definitely need that handholding until the point where you're comfortable with this interface and all that. Okay, I would say this is not a complete prerequisite. Okay, but you need to learn few things on how to manage things on the Azure portal side, and that would be covered in the classes that we have. At least creating the services related to database blobs. Okay, creating ADF data service. Okay, creating them, how to manage your subscription. Okay, related to cost and all that, like you might have to perform some shutdown of your services if they're not in use. Okay, and we call few of the services as serverless. So what are those serverless services that we have? So few of the things would be covered, I would say, which are required from the data engineering point of view.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Okay, so yeah, I mean, this was about the explanations that I have been giving on that, and yeah, this is some of the home screen that you see, and then the portal.azure.com. I think I showed you right on the resource creation that we have. So basically, when you create your subscription on your own, okay, you will end up with this screen, and you can we can start creating all these services. I'll show you how to create the SQL server, then databases. What are the other practices that we need to just keep in mind while we are learning things, right? Few of the things we might have to perform we have to start services and all that, just to ensure that our credits. So basically we'll have some credits that are allocated when you create a subscription. So I have my credits for this month, it says 9,000 rupees. So I try to manage things around within my credits, all my learning and all my implementations that I showcase to you. I kind of make this under this, and yeah, if needed, we'll also purchase sometimes. So that's how uh, we manage that subscription. So that part also would be kind of a covered. Should we learn SQL Server? Yes, I would say, see, some insight is definitely needed for you to actually visualize tables, right? So you need to understand that until you understand that, there's no point we calling ourselves as data engineers when you don't even know what is table. But I would say that is not that difficult, right? The prerequisite being you need not be too much of an advanced. Okay, you can learn things in phased manner, but we need to understand that we need at least some basic concept. If I tell you please connect to that source and fire a select query on table, at least you should be in a situation to understand that. Okay, so that's the basic connecting to SQL server and just at least firing a query, meaning select star, right? So you need to at least visualize that table. Okay, I would say like the basic prerequisite would be SQL server, But yeah, if you are saying, but you need to be a little passionate about learning about SQL Server too, because see, whatever insights or ultimately the data engineer, okay, he needs to understand the things that are going on. You need to visualize that table. Okay, you need to visualize that table. You might be firing some queries, you might have to join some tables. So the basics being understanding tables, what are the basic join queries that you need to do, and what are the stored procedures. And I would say maybe with a kind of a, if you spend some 2 hours understanding these basic concepts, you'll at least have a basic idea that you can start the course with them. Okay, but without nothing, I think this is not the course for you. Should we learn Python before Spark will be covered? So the Spark is something. See, the backend engine of we'll be working on the data bricks here. Okay, and we'll be working on the demos, a few of the demos that has PySpark queries. Okay, so like mounting those queries using PySpark data frame, how to mount a data frame, then how to perform some string operations on top of the data frames. So this is what we are going to learn, and that involves PySpark. Okay, not Spark alone, PySpark would be there, and Python with Spark is something that we are going to do in the demos. No Scala. See, I'll tell you, that's the reason why I think we have multi languages here. Like I know that Scala is the actual flavor, or the, I should say, the vanilla flavor of for the Spark. Okay, but yeah, we will be working things out with respect to Python. I mean, because the Python is something that is kind of getting more and more popular, and we have good number of from the functioning from the functions point of view, from the string functions. So what even client was is demanding, or I should say the trend that is currently going is with respect to Python also. But yeah, we're not covering Scala here, but yeah, we will be having some scripts, and that too, those scripts are like they're there available, and we will be trying to share those scripts during our classes. The Python scripts basically that involves PySpark. So setting that PySpark context, and then how to kind of extract tables, join tables within that data frame, and mounting that into a, creating a temporary view and all that. One Spark is written in Scala. Um, so this offers a multi-language. Yeah, whoever asked that question, Mastan, it offers a multi-language. Like you just by a magic command. We call this as magic commands. Okay, magic commands in the notebooks that we have, right? We'll be able to have SQL queries. Okay, and sometimes the Python, and also it has support for C# also. I think that's what I'm seeing recently. I will be able to just give like this and write your Python script. You can just give like this and write Scala script in your notebooks. That's how it is done. Yes, yeah, that's yeah, Rohit. No Scala. When Spark is written in Scala. Yeah. Okay. Sir, any real-time projects? So yes, Rohit. So basically, um, when I'm talking about this transformation stuff, right? So ultimately, what we are going to do is we are going to create some dimensions and fact tables. Fact tables. So this is what you're going to ultimately have in the real world. I mean, they're from the business side, right? So we are going to create dimension and what is a fact. So I will be explaining what is a dimension, what is a fact, what are the different types of dimensions like SCD type 1 and SCD type 2. Okay, and then the fact table, I'll be explaining about the concepts about those, and also a similar way using Databricks or the mapping data flows, we'll try to perform some lookups and all that on the dimension tables and ultimately populate our fact tables. So you can definitely try to relate the things that you are currently working upon and kind of map that to the current scenario. And when it comes to the real-time project, you're saying, right? Like suppose this ingestion process is there. Okay. Uh, we will also kind of let you know, like in the actual real world, how this is actually automated and parameterized and all. So because there will be an entire framework of things that will be happening in the ingestion process, and it is not that difficult like it was earlier, and we'll have an easy process of parameterizing and automating the same with very few lines of code that we have. Okay, so I mean that shouldn't be I mean you will definitely get the real context here. Okay, I'll be explaining a few of the examples, how to finally put or publish the data in the facts and dimensions, and then what do we actually do during the ingestion process, and what if we have to automate things or try to loop in things in the real world. Okay, Rohit, I hope I answered your question. I mean, if you're willing to speak, you can also unmute yourself and speak out in case if you're finding it difficult.
Hello, this is Kumar.
Yeah, yes, Kumar.
Yeah, I am from a ETL testing background. So would this be the right thing if I go for the Azure Data Engineer course and
Sorry, which
transition my
testing
career
you
into
mentioned?
this ETL data
Which
warehouse
testing?
testing background?
Yes. So that means you're already aware of all the dimensions, facts, but I think you just need some insight on how things work in cloud, right? So definitely you can just, I mean, either you can also developing on, you can move into the cloud ETL testing also, right? So far you have been working on the SSIS or on-premise area, or how is that
I was
happening now?
working on this IBM data stage 8.7 tool
Okay, okay.
as a ETL
Yes,
tester.
I think
Yes.
yeah, this can really help you, and you can actually match or map that scenarios that you have been testing and doing it right. You can match them into the scenarios into cloud, and you can put up the same thing in your resume too, right? So see, everyone, what I'm currently seeing is everyone will not have a direct opportunity, might have not had an opportunity so far to work on cloud, and but the skill has been demanding, or people have been demanding that okay, you might have to learn this, or this is the prerequisite for a job offer or something like that, right? So what I would say is like you will have to slightly uh, kind of make changes in such a way that, or you have to try to relate the scenario that you have, or try to relate that ETL that you had on that IBM data stage that you're talking about, and you have to try to relate it to the Azure things that you're going to learn here. Okay, and you have to match that, and you have to see, and you have to portray as if okay, you're already working on Azure, and you're aware of the different services, and you're aware of the different developer aspects and perspectives that you try to gain in the classes. And yeah, I think that will really help you.
Yeah. So what I understand is I think it will not be difficult for me to migrate from this role to Azure Data Engineer role, right? It will.
Yes,
It's
no,
not that difficult, but with this training, I'll be able to come up with the experience and put it that in the resume, right?
absolutely, yes, yes.
Okay. And with this course, like how many years of experience we can showcase in the resume?
See, the Azure services had started sometime in 2010. Okay, and then it slowly evolved, and the data factories had kicked in somewhere around 2015, 2016, and now we are having a data factory of V2 version 2, which came in around like 2019, 2018 timeframe. So everybody is still a buddy, I should say, on this area, but uh, we can at least showcase an experience of around 2 years, 2 to 3 years for sure. But see, everyone is now directly falling on this data engineering or Azure side of things, or cloud side of things. But I would say it is happening in a very phased manner. Okay, all of a sudden everybody can't just simply migrate there. But as I am telling you, right? So you have to match that scenario. You can keep the same experience that you have, right? You're saying you have been working on that ETL testing scenario. The same scenario you try
Yes.
to mimic it here, right? So you have been working in maybe around 4 years, 5 years there. Yeah, you can just keep the same thing here and say that a similar kind
Okay.
of a scenario you have to portray it here. That's how it works.
Okay. 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 Yeah. Got it. Yeah.
Got it, right?
Thank you.
Got it, right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How is the job market for Azure and AWS? Uh, I'm not supporting any particular product here, but I should say they are equally going good. But on the data engineering side, yeah, Azure is picking up because like Microsoft is always thinks on the developer friendly lines, right? So I would kind of a vote from the developer perspective to the Azure side, and yeah, I think we have to do some analysis in trying to directly understand what are the exact competitive areas between both of them. But I would say, like, yeah, both of them are picking up, but from the developers per se, yeah, I think Azure will take a vote. Because I'll tell you one thing here, like Azure integrated with Databricks. Okay, Databricks as such, it is a company which is built on top of a free open sourced Spark, Apache Spark. Okay, and Databricks is a flavor on top of Apache Spark. And Azure, I mean, from the Microsoft Azure end, he tried to offer a service here. Okay. Similarly, now he launched something called mapping data flows, which is a kind of a graphic user-friendly interface that I mean, I would say developer-friendly user interface. So if I have to just show you one of the pipeline or this author, yeah, this kind of a interface. So this had kicked in around the 2021 January into a general availability feature. Okay, you can see a nice intuitive way of doing things. Okay, earlier we used to have something like this in SSIS, but he brought it up here by spinning up, by using the same technology of Databricks, but he's offering this kind of a intuitive design or a kind of an interface. Okay, so that credit goes to Microsoft only. Basically, he thinks on the developer friendly lines and try to make few things like this. But to be frank, I'm exactly not sure how this is working in AWS. Okay, I call this as this mapping data flows. I need to just look up on the what is the exact resource on the mapping data flows. I really don't know.
Uh, can you tell me what is the total duration hours or in days for this course?
Usually I saw like it will take around 25 classes to 30 classes, and after this session also, if you see that if you're not clear with something on creation, or if you feel like there are many huge number of services, right? Like for example, last batch that we had, one of the resource had asked me how to create a machine learning workspace. Okay, so I even though that was not part of the curriculum, we tried to give some personal, I went ahead, checked on those ML workspace, try to create a showcase it as a demo there. So definitely that flexibility would be there, because if there is some scenario in your organization which is is demanding, right? And whatever that I can do from my end after completing this course, I'll be able to kind of assist you on that. Okay, I hope match started. Okay, just okay, fine. I think we are good for
And
now.
usually, what is the timings for these classes on a daily basis?
It will be during morning hours. I think the timings part and all that, yeah, organizers would be
Okay.
able to respond you back. So it will be only during the morning, considering everybody have to start their offices and you have
Mm.
your kids to manage and everything, right? So it
Okay.
would be much before that, definitely
Okay.
sometime before, maybe around 7 o'clock or 6:30, something like that.
Sure. Sure. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you everyone for joining the class, and yeah, waiting for you. And yeah, have a good weekend ahead. Thank you. Bye everyone.
Thank you. Bye.